All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's see what Koichi and Jesus have in common.
My Hero Vigilantes is finally here, and right out of the gates, Studio Bones is not playing any games with the animation. I swear we've seen this glowing baby intro so many times by now, but somehow, they still managed to make it look great. The opening is a banger, and the comic style is perfect. Now, this Peach Man villain was going on a rampage, and I'm still trying to figure out why he decided to turn a motorcycle into a snack. He said something about having strong teeth, but what about his stomach? Even if the bike is delicious, it's gonna have to come back out eventually. All Might ended up saving the day, and looks like he got a facelift. This is before his injury, so we are looking at prime All Might here. But really, what was this villain's plan? He even lost one of his precious teeth. Koichi is the main character of this story, but even though he's a red shoe wearing All Might fan that's also a student, he is very different from Deku. He was running late for college and bumped into the wrong person. Now this guy right here is an absolute menace to society. Bro poured out his own drink just to make a bigger deal out of nothing. He told Koichi to apologize, and that boy was already on his knees. You'd think that would be enough, but totally unprovoked, the goon tried to kick him in the head. So Koichi hit him with the cleanest swerve possible. Thanks to that, this man felt like Charlie Brown trying to kick a football. And somehow, he managed to blame Koichi. Koichi's quirk slide and glide is decent, but underwhelming since he's only as fast as a bicycle. It's hard to take a slow movement quirk seriously. And the pose he has to hit to use it is so ridiculous that he's got random women calling him a cockroach. Imagine how filthy his hands must be after going all across the city like that. And even if it's convenient, using his quirk like this isn't even legal. In the manga, he even got in trouble with the police. But they cut that part out. He saw a wannabe idol named Popstep having a concert on the street. I was wondering...
Alright, one of the first things that we are already seeing is that Koichi is kind of portrayed as having like this modest lifestyle, even with his quirk being weak, right? You wouldn't think anything of him. And it's similar to how Jesus enters the story of a lot of the Gospels, right? He has a very humble birth, right? Luke 2:7 says that she gave birth to him, to her firstborn son, wrapped in a thin swaddling cloth in a manger. So first thing that we see is that both of them have humble beginnings.
Why the crowd had a bunch of glow sticks in broad daylight. Then I realized that they're actually this guy's severed fingers. I'm telling you, man, being quirkless isn't actually that bad. Koichi low-key roasted Popstep's basic music and said that she wears too much makeup. Even the mask over her eyes is just makeup. But at the very least, he did like her quirk. It lets her leap around. Simple, but more socially acceptable than his. After being late for school, Koichi was running late for work too. And this right here, this is what I'm talking about. His hand ended up in some random street fluids, and his whole body rolled on the ground. He is filthy, and there is not a single hand washing scene in sight.
That is kind of gross that in order to slide, he just has to... It would be interesting if it was just like his feet, but having his hands have to be on the floor too. Yeah, I get what this guy's getting at. It's a little gross.
Eventually, he made it to the job he hates, and just his luck, the guys who were chasing him earlier showed up. So Koichi ended up getting jumped outside while still being on the clock. Not to mention, one of them straight up has Wolverine claws for a quirk. Koichi got kicked in the stomach and stomped out. I'm sorry, but this would have to be my villain origin story. And
all right. So coming in at number 2, another thing that we notice is that Koichi is getting jumped or he's getting attacked even though he is innocent. And this correlates with actually what happened to Jesus, right? He was persecuted. People wanted to kill him, wanted to imprison him for basically doing nothing. He didn't break any laws. He didn't really do anything that was deserving, especially of him having to suffer on the cross. So number 2, they were both persecuted for being innocent.
And remember, they're doing all of this just because he bumped into one of them. They had Koichi taking the walk of shame back home. And it looks like he was about to be on demon time. Bro had a plan. He opened up a drawer full of All Might hoodies, one for each era. He even hit All Might's victory pose while gearing up. He might not be a Deku level fanboy, but he's definitely up there. He's also...
That's actually a pretty cool scene in how they snuck that in there. I thought that was pretty legit.
Broke and doesn't have a single mom to spoil him with merch. Koichi literally hit the streets and didn't care about the law anymore. He pulled up on 2 girls and it looked like he was about to steal a purse. Instead, his plan was to do community service. He even ran into Deku's mom and had her smiling. I'm sure he reminded her of Deku in his All Might hoodie. But hold up, why does she have a suitcase and need directions? Was she visiting Deku's dad overseas? Unlike in the manga, they made her skinny here since all of this takes place about 5 years before My Hero Academia.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. Why are you calling out that she was fat?
Now Koichi had a solid reputation in the local area. They even called him Nice Guy. He's supposed to have a secret identity and even wears a mask to hide his face. Yet he uses the exact same quirk with the exact same pose on his way to work and school in broad daylight. Whatever, at least
That's a fair call out. Like, it's pretty obvious.
he wears gloves now. He ran into Popstep and she recognized him immediately. She called his hoodie lame, so he said that she's never making it out of the hood with her imaginary music career. He almost got hit for the 2nd time in one day. But Popstep accidentally touched the one guy who jumped a man for exactly that. Suddenly, the episode took a wicked turn. These guys went from reckless thugs to full-on predators. And somehow, this is the tamer version. In the manga, they wanted to do much more than a face reveal, which was only made worse by the fact that they knew she was in high school. Koichi tried telling them to chill out, but they didn't care. And he was really about to just walk away. You think
It's kind of interesting to me that they like censored the anime with this scene. Like, I mean, you could have hinted at it and not made it so obvious and still kind of keep that.
he'd at least call the cops or something. But when he saw her crying, Koichi decided to lock in. Now, some people were really mad about this scene online. They compared it to how Deku rushed in to save Bakugo from the sludge villain without thinking. But I think that's a bit unfair. Vigilantes was made to be a more
People will always have something to complain about.
grounded and closer look at the dark side of the hero world. And this is what it looks like when a hero isn't around. The system actively discourages against vigilantism. And mind you, these guys have already pushed his face in and have dangerous quirks. Let's be real, most people would hesitate. And let's not forget that Deku hesitated too. It was only after he saw Bakugo's tears that his body moved before he could think. That's what made him special and worthy of inheriting All Might's power. If just anyone would like that, what would set Deku apart? And let's not pretend that was a smart move. Without All Might going past his daily limit, Deku would have been cooked right alongside Bakugo. Koichi went for a sneak attack and tried to knock the big guy down. He had a whole plan worked out in the manga, but they cut it. This man didn't move an inch and casually threw Koichi with one arm.
Alright, so number 3, they both cared for the downtrodden. They both had compassion for other people. Now, one difference is that Jesus was successful while Koichi, in this case, got beat. We constantly see Jesus looking out for people that were down in their luck, having compassion for them. For example, Matthew 9:36 says, he had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. And this is something that is very constant throughout all of the Gospels. Jesus always looking after the rejected of society and looking out after those that could not defend themselves.
This is exactly why he hesitated. But oh man, he also broke the no-touching rule, so Spike up the ante. Apparently, he can make spikes from his feet too. Now, I can't lie, this guy's quirk is actually kind of fire. It might be a pain to use if you were a hero, but if Bakugo can blow things up and Shoto can use fire, I don't see why spikes wouldn't be fair game. But oh my goodness, why is this man so excessive? Just for that, he decided to super violate Shin and the place he works at. And on top of that, they do even worse to pop step over it. Even Koichi didn't understand why they'd go that far. Spike was doing all of this just because he was mad. But then, a real thug pulled up. Instead of a Superman landing, he fell on a pile of trash. But while All Might not be showing up, he is here. The first thing he said to them was something about having a strong neck. Oh hell no, what kind of Mike Tyson training does this guy do? I wouldn't want smoke with him off that alone. He knocked Spike across the alley with one punch. And listen, Knuckle Duster is easily one of the hardest names in the series. This man has
that is a pretty legit name. I will say another thing to also mention, coming in at number 4, I would say, is that Koichi as well as Jesus were willing to fight individuals, evildoers, if you will, for the sake of those that couldn't. Like in here, obviously, we saw the scene of him trying to protect that girl. While Jesus, we see clear depictions of him standing up against the Pharisees, who were like the bad guys of Jesus' time. There were these religious leaders that thought they were better than everybody, and they often kept people down by enforcing laws that not even themselves were following.
Brass Knuckles is as big as All Might and turned a do-rag into a mask. If you see someone like this, just go home. After he whooped Geico over here, the first thing he did was check his tongue. And let me tell you, the neck training tongue stretcher is a wicked combination. He also managed to lay out the big fella in one punch too. Koichi got the hint and tried to sneak away, but he already caught the weirdo's attention. All of a sudden, the man became a talent scout trying to recruit him. Koichi tried to front and say that he's not interested in being a hero, but the All Might hoodie was a dead giveaway. Then he blamed his lame quirk and said that he'd never be able to get his hero license. But Knuckle Duster didn't give a damn about any of that. That is not what it means to be a hero. But most of what Koichi managed to hear was that this guy isn't even a legal hero. From there, Spike woke back up, and you guessed it, was ready to take his crash out to the next level. He grabbed Pop Step again. Knuckle Duster didn't care if he had a hostage, but that wasn't why Spike grabbed her. At this point, he just wanted to tear her face off for the hell of it. He said it was the only way to release his anger. Yeah, Overhaul was right. Quirks deserve to be deleted if they can make people this unhinged. Imagine if he ever had a legit reason to be mad. Hearing that made Koichi be heroic and use his quirk to tackle the guy. Spike got punched in the face again and skipped like a rock. After that, Knuckle Duster wouldn't take no for an answer. Somehow, he wound up at Koichi's place. He clearly has no sense of boundaries since he went through Koichi's wallet and then hit his fridge. And man, Koichi is definitely on that Peter Parker budget right now. He probably eats sleep for dinner like Uraraka used to. Yet the old man still managed to steal his beer. And somehow, Spike still hadn't learned his lesson and was plotting his revenge. Imagine having Wolverine's claws and bad attitude, but not being able to take a hit. Even his friends weren't sure about following him anymore. Suddenly, a dealer with a glowing scar pulled up and offered them some dope. This is the same drug that Knuckle Duster has been hunting down. At this time, the quirk booster trigger was still new.
Knuckle
Crazy
Buster.
enough, Spike's gang didn't ask any questions and just injected themselves on the spot. So now they're all way stronger and ready to cause even more trouble. But they didn't even go after Koichi. They just started rampaging through the city. Since the drug makes tongues turn black, Knuckle Duster's been checking people. And if they don't comply, he'll see what that mouth do by force. Which is terrifying, and exactly what they ended up doing the next day. Popstep met up with them and still wasn't happy about the old guy trying.
That was kind of wild. Like any villain that you run into, you can open their mouth and check their tongue. Like, I wonder how many times he got bit, you know?
To ditch her. He just lit up and told her that that's not his problem. She actually came up with a much better way to find suspicious people. But the old man did not care. He pulled up on a random civilian and demanded to see his tongue. I need to know what you would do in the same situation. When he saw the man's briefcase was full of children's toys, Knuckle Duster was ready to throw hands. But apparently, selling toys is just the poor guy's job. Either way, the tongue inspector wasn't done with him yet. And that's when the GOAT, Eraserhead, showed up. This is before he worked at UA and was still making his name as a hero. Vigilantes is off to a great start. We haven't done an episode breakdown in ages, but
The last thing that I will mention coming in at number 5 is that both Koichi and Jesus, in a sense, are operating outside the law, right? Koichi, right, as the name of the anime says, he's a vigilante. He doesn't have his hero license. Jesus himself also operated outside the law. Now, in Jesus' time, Rome pretty much ruled over the Jews, right? However, they did allow the religious leaders to have a sort of governance amongst the people. And Jesus himself, in his ministry, he, in a sense, became also a vigilante because he was operating outside those rules to the point where he was called heretical. They ultimately came after him and tried to kill him or get him killed because he was calling into question the system that they had put in place. Obviously, it didn't work because Jesus on the third day rose from the dead. Anyways, let me know what you think in the comments about these 5 comparisons between Jesus and Koichi. Are you enjoying this anime? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, as I want to remind you of that, we must persevere. Peace.